Hi, my name is Janet Palafox, IBVM, and I am the current NGO representative at the UN for the Institute of the Blessed Virgin Mary and the Congregation of Jesus. For this year's CSW, we invited Ruby, one of our girl delegates from Nepal, and we wanted her to be here to speak for herself and for her colleagues, her particular experience as a girl and the issues that she faced as a girl. We also invited Leonida from Kenya. She's one of our sisters in Kenya working with the most marginalized in Kibera. And also we had Mary, who was from Australia, working with Leonida. We had a side event on the work of religious in addressing gender equality. And we invited Sister Brenda, who is from our US province. So she was able to speak to us about the work that we, as Mary Ward women, have been doing through all the time. Of course, we have our interns, Ana Paula from Peru and Janelle from Australia. So we had a really good mix of people from different backgrounds. And I think that has contributed much to the conversations here at the United Nations. The previous 2 years that I've been here, we were focused on the negotiations, following it up, and talking to our member states, making sure that we don't backtrack. For this year of CSW, there is no negotiations for the outcome document because all the negotiations happened earlier for the political declaration. This is a commemoration of the Beijing Platform for Action on its 30th year. I think that is the big difference from the previous year. This year, the negotiations finished, but we were still having that conversation. It was more really of a dialogue with all the member states. And I think for all of us, and maybe some of us have actually taken for granted that we're just going to progress and continue to progress. I think this year we realized, no, we cannot take this for granted. This is not given. It can happen with the work that together we can do. But yeah, and I think that's a difference. The energy is very different from previous years. There's also a lot of really conversations of working together that I have experienced this year. We have a lot of work to do still, particularly in relation to gender equality. We have achieved a lot in education, in employment, but in relation to leadership, we're still lagging behind. I think for us, what we need to do is to educate our network about the data on gender equality. Because there is this sense that we've achieved gender equality. And definitely we may have done it within our own environment, but that is not the reality. The data doesn't show that at all. Not one country has achieved gender equality. So there is a lot of work to do, and I think we need to share those informations, educate our network, and especially the importance of advocacy. We are very good amongst our network in relation to sharing what we have, but I think we also need to look at the system. I think it is important that we change the system because it is a very unequal system. We cannot live in an unequal world. That is not what we are. That's not the kingdom of God that we are hoping to bring forth into our world. And I think as a group of Mary Ward women and men and girls, we have a responsibility to change the system for all. I invite you to collaborate with us, provide us the information that you are getting from the ground, from your countries, from your communities, because we need to have those voices heard, particularly the voices of the most marginalized who are disregarded. We can do this together.
Hello everyone, my name is Ruby and I'm from Nepal. The most valuable thing I've learned at CSW is that how important it is for different diverse backgrounds to come together, different IOs to be together and work together. And yes, that is. Everyone should be together and work together for women. That's how we can advocate for women's rights. And also, boys and girls should work in hand and also share about their problems and issues so that they both can work towards the solution for both of them. There are laws are strict, but the implementation of laws all around the world and even in my country is very poor. So the government must make sure that now they have the laws, the implementation must also be done. So they should focus more on implementation of laws and rules in one's country. And the second one would be education once again, or awareness campaigns where people in rural areas or in city as well, they can come together and have a group discussion where they can share their thoughts and feelings and listen to each other and advocate for each other. And that's how we can bring change in the society. The challenges that girls and women face in my country is gender-based violence. So women and girls in Nepal, they didn't really have access to education as much as men do. There is a social stigma and norms and tradition that prevents women from having their own voice or getting access to education. They are more led into household chores and activities. They are considered to be not that useful in real world. In one of the events, I heard about how this particular woman started this campaign, a virtual campaign where it was sexual violence. I was the victim of sexual violence, and every woman they came together and they talked about it. So that is what I'm really looking forward to. That may take time because in my country, talking about sexual violence or anything in particular about women's rights and the stigmas is really hard to get upon. And the next thing is in my school and with other school, with both girls and boys, we are planning to have a post CSW event where we can invite some other people who attended a post CSW and talk about what really happened. So even though they were not here, they can get an idea about what's really going on at the UN and how they can help as well and what the UN is doing to help them in the same way.
I'm Mary Campbell, the chairperson of Women for Women in Africa, and I operate from Melbourne, Australia. I think the most valuable thing I've learned at the UN CSW is how to accelerate the goals and our place in that. Although you feel small in this huge, wonderful sisterhood at the UN, it's something that becomes very personal. Women and girls face many, many challenges in the biggest slum in Africa, Kibera, which is situated right beside the WKW Centre. I guess for women and girls, it's first of all about poverty and access to education, which of course they know and we're all aware is the only step forward for them. So they face challenges and threats every day around safety and security. There's a huge digital divide, but often it just comes down to the basic fundamentals of being able is survival. My role in Australia is to lead a board and volunteers to provide financial support that they need at the WKW Wanaki Kwa Wanaki Centre in Nairobi. And the women and children, particularly the girls, are the most vulnerable in that community, and they're particularly at risk for their safety and security. Living in poverty, they're at risk of survival, and there are so many barriers for them, particularly access to education. So our role in that is to provide education through sponsorship, and often with our wonderful Australians that will support and journey with that girl through primary, secondary and tertiary. The sessions at the UN have really affirmed what we already know with regard to violence against women and girls in Kibera. We know that because of their vulnerabilities, because of their situations of living in poverty, that they're extremely vulnerable targets for sex trafficking. And so one of the best things that we can do to delay child marriage, delay early pregnancy, to really ensure that the girls are physically, emotionally safe, is to have them in boarding school. And it's great to see that some cultural practices that are harmful to girls have really been addressed in this way by the mother's choice of keeping our girls safe. So I'm thrilled that UKW offer this and that it is a part of the package that we offer. I think together we're really definitely on the right track for just creating a new generation of young women to really have self-agency, to really be able to be confident to go into the world with economic freedom that their mothers and grandmothers perhaps didn't have. The first thing I will do is write to our database, particularly our sponsors, and make them aware of how we together can provide the energy and the drive forward that we need to lessen the divide particularly for the women and girls. I think that we really will be working on the divide and the gap between education and employment and how we can really support women with that digital divide. I think that we will, as a board, set our priorities that align with both the UN goals and most definitely what WKW want to do in moving forward. Our hope is for a better future. We know that we can address violence and poverty and all the challenges that women are facing in the inequities of their world. We can address that through education. And so it's really exciting to know that our sponsorship program works. Our sponsorship program is what's needed and that we've all got a part to play in that. And just, I see it as my role now is one of sharing information and really supporting people to know that they're capable of helping in a very positive way.
Hi, I'm Janelle and I'm from Melbourne, Australia. The most valuable thing that I've learnt was understanding the different avenues and areas that gender inequality actually faces. So this includes, I wasn't aware of the digital violence women and girls face disproportionately more than men and boys, and how the growth of technology and AI is very gendered. There's also the classic health, economic, and even the cultural impacts that can have on gender inequality. It was very interesting to learn about the different aspects that affect this issue. I've been very privileged in living in Australia since our gender equality gap is not as disproportionate as other nations. However, there is still that small level of ignorance, I feel. Since we are a developed nation, people often think that we have achieved gender equality, as does other developed nations. However, 1 in 3 women still experience gender-based violence in Australia, and there's also the threat of technology being gendered. And with the growth of technology, I don't think there's much discussion about it within Australia and how this could devastate gender inequality. So I think the ignorance and lack of accountability for gender inequality is not necessarily spoken about. I also wanted to highlight that in certain countries, there used to be a lot of progression in gender equality. However, climates can shift and situations can change. And a lot of women and girls are facing a lot of backlash for the progress they have made or the progress that is being made. And so I just want Australia to also realize that this could happen to us if we take gender equality for granted, since it can happen to any country as seen currently in the world. Concrete actions in Australia usually are seen to be the duty of politicians, lawmakers, and people of authority. However, being here during CSW, I have learnt that civil society contributes to a huge role in lawmaking, in voice of reason. And so I would encourage civil society and even politicians, lawmakers, and authorities to listen to civil society, because without listening to the people on the ground, it is near impossible to create change and develop new policies. Young people also need to realize that our voices do shift and they do make an impact higher up. So civil society is very vital for the progression towards gender equality or equity. So being loud, writing letters to the government, and even just questioning and being curious about issues and being open to learning more so that civil society has the same amount of power as politicians, authorities, and lawmakers. So there's two areas that I would do when I go back to Australia. The first one is that personally, before coming here, I was quite hesitant in expressing my opinions and beliefs because I didn't want to seem annoying and that traditional angry feminist. However, CSW has encouraged me to speak out more and to have conversations with more people about this. In relation to that, I also met a lot of NGOs based in Australia, based in the Asia Pacific region, as well as globally, that I would want to connect with so that when I do go back, even if it's on a volunteering basis, I'm able to expand that network and even connect with other NGOs together to form like coalitions of almost civil society. And then the second area is that through my hunt in employment, I also think that I'm going to take into consideration ethics and values of organizations and companies more into account because I want to be in the wave of the change and support organizations and companies that want to move forward and want to achieve gender equality.
I am Sister Leonida, a Loreto sister from Kenya, living in Nairobi, Kenya, and working in the biggest slum in Africa, which is Kibera. The most valuable thing that I have learned here is that there's still hope in the world. There's been a lot of discouragements, difficulties, but this time I experienced a lot of people united in one spirit, determined to make the world a better place at every cost. And that is so special. The main challenges that the people in Kibera, where I work, face is poverty. There's so much poverty there, and it's just hard to imagine that people can live such a life. The other problem is education, and without education, there's no future for these girls. We cannot achieve gender equality, so the biggest problems are poverty and education. And in the world, there's a lot of inequalities, which are even the gains that we've made now, they're just being threatened, and we must fight to gain back what is being taken away from us. First, as it is in Kenya now, we had made a lot of steps towards free education. And education was beginning to be more accessible to the children. But now with the present government, it's so expensive for any parent to take their child, especially from the slum, to take their child to school. I think there's a lot that needs to be done so that we lobby the government to make education free for all. It's a right for the children, and so they need to go to school. We shouldn't have to struggle so much to look for money to put children to school. The next thing is we need to get the people themselves to get to know that it's their right to get free education. And so getting them to also demand that from the government will also help our efforts. As it is, we are trying our best to make sure that these women and these girls are not left behind. I have so much I want to do. I really wish I could go and implement everything that I have learned from here, because it's all been very, very valuable. But the first thing which I want to do when I get back is I want to gather all the women and teach them about all that I have learned from here. Teach also the girls, teach also the men, get the families together and teach them. So I'm going to run workshops from the time I live here. I'm going to run workshops for our families in Kibera. That's the first thing that I will do. The other thing that I thought that I would do is start a little organization that says Kimya No. Kimya means silence. So like no to silence. Because we hide, people are so afraid to talk about abuse, people are so afraid to talk about all the wrongs against gender that are happening. People are afraid. So I want to open that up. I want people to have conversations about it. So I want the women and girls to start this kind of thing, and even the young people, the boys as well, so that they don't remain silent. They are able to identify these problems and address them and openly speak about them, so that we can have a better Kibera. And then this is the only way we can achieve gender equality. This is the only way that people can respect each other and we get to where we want to go. So I want to start that little organization known as Kimya No.